building strategies are phenomenal. And I've invited my cohorts up here to come talk about strategies, to come answer your questions, because some of the things that we've shared from you, Leroy has expertise that I don't have. Keith has expertise that he doesn't have. I bring expertise that they don't have. Together we offer a phenomenal team that can help to give you the answers you need to be equipped to go out there and be successful in your victory over your financial. Remember, it's warfare at its best. So I hope you got some good questions, Bruin. Are you ready? Okay. With wealth building strategies, you need to understand it is not a get rich quick. Even when I stand up here and I talk about the tapes, the books, the resources, and the things that we do have available to you, they're not tens of thousands of dollars. It's an easy to read material that can empower you to go out there and be successful. But it's a process. And it's a process you're going to be working. If you're looking to get rich quick, then it's going to go away just as fast. Even if you do get it, you're not going to know how to manage it. God's going to build it on a process. Right. If you're faithful with little, you're given much. Then you're faithful with a little bit more, you're given more. You're faithful with that, you get even more. And it just continues to grow exponentially. Proverbs says that wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. This is a concept you need to have when you're building wealth. Little by little equals much. Everybody wants to step up to the plate and hit a home run and earn $1 million right away. And people do it. It's called the lottery. Unfortunately, about 75% of Americans today count on the lottery to provide for their retirement. Since 98% of us finish this race either dead or dead broke, we know that it's not working, right? And if you were to do a study, just Google stories on people who've won the lottery. And look how many of them are worse off after they had the money than they were before. They're alienated by friends, by family. Nobody wants to talk to them because they wouldn't help them out. They wouldn't do a handout. They're so deep in debt and they got no way to pay it. They end up bankrupt, foreclosure. Who were you saying yesterday, Leroy, that earned $200 million is now broke? One of the basketball players. Oh, that was you?
Yeah, it was Allen Iverson was one case, over $200 million. Also, Mike Tyson, when he was in his heyday, over $320 million, and he's broke.
The list goes on. MC Hammer. But you can think of several others too. Made all this money, didn't know what to do with it, bang. Wealth will dwindle, but when you increase it little by little, it equals a lot of gains. So it's a diligent process. And part of gaining wealth is going to be diligence. It's going to be applying some of these things that we've diligently hit. How many of you are interested in doing business? Yes. Of any kind, that's great. Some of you that are interested in doing business, I'm sure you have some questions that you need to go line up here with Judy right now and get ready to ask some of those questions, okay? So doing business is a key part. Is doing business mean you got to open up a storefront? Somebody asked me where my office is. And I had to be honest and answer, yeah, it's in a bedroom in my house. You know, it sounds like a glamorous life working at home, but the only problem with working at home is you're always at work. So sometimes I'm like, it's 5 o'clock, can we go somewhere, please? Just to get out of the house. The commute is terrible, though. I've got stairs I have to go up and down. Sometimes there's a kid in the way. Although that happens less often now than it used to. 2 of my 3 have left. But you don't have to set up a big, expensive storefront. If that's what you're called to do, go for it. There's so many opportunities that you can do today in today's technology, today's information age. I talk to a lot of people globally and sit right there at my home office. People that work for me are set up on our phone system that operate out of their home office. And if you call my office, it sounds like a really big company, and we transfer you to their extension, and we're like, I hope they're home. And if they're not, they get a voicemail. Do you know any different? No, technology today can empower you to do a lot. So how many of you got questions about starting up a business? It can be a great thing to do.
And Troy, what you're just talking about is if you're building a business, the biggest thing is you want to keep your expenses low. Because as soon as you go into business, I think they broadcast your name and your intent to all the telemarketers. And they immediately start hitting you up for, Hey, get this. Hey, you'll need this. Hey, get this marketing program. Hey, what they want to do is suck you out of every ounce of capital you have, and you need your capital to do business. Keep your expenses low. Just think of whatever you have, hold it in this arena. When you start out, hold it tight. Okay? Use that to multiply. Don't use it. Listen, I run a construction company. How many vehicles do we have on the road? I got one vehicle on the road. I pay everybody else to use theirs. I'm not spending $100,000 on 5 new trucks. Everybody can use their own trucks, and I'll help them pay for it.
When you enter into a business activity, you start operating your finances in a different way than you're trained to operate your house. Shouldn't you operate your household finances the same way that you would operate a business? It doesn't matter what business you go into, it equates the buying and selling of a widget. Mm-hmm. Your job is to find out what widget you can get for $1 and sell for $3. And somewhere in the middle, you cover your expenses and make a little profit. I don't care if that widget is a house. I don't care if it's an idea. I don't care if you're picking up fruit and selling it at a farmer's market at the side of the road. It's all a widget, and it all operates the same. Now, many of you would start thinking about business expenses, and you're already thinking, well, gee, if I were to do a business, and you start thinking about the management of that business, and you've completely shifted away from how you already manage your personal finances, haven't you? Leroy talked earlier today about the separation between business and the church. Are you starting to see that there really is no separation? Mm-hmm. Everything that we do in the realm of finances, everything we do to manage our personal business, our business, our public business, everything that we do is a spiritual warfare that's used to bring more dollars into the kingdom. And then when business partners with God, let me get you a little bit of concept. Luke chapter 5. Peter's out fishing all night. The dude is tired. He's tired. He's feeling like, man, I worked hard all day. This business stinks. This just isn't working. He's cleaning his nets. Can you imagine working all day and making nothing, and you still got to clean up a mess? And then Jesus walks on the scene. Peter, I want to get in your boat. Peter's like, man, I'm so tired. I haven't done anything, but all right, I'll row out. They row out, and Jesus gets to speak to the people. And then after he's done speaking to the people, he tells people, Peter, row out a little deeper and cast out your nets. What was Peter by trade? He was a fisherman. He took the platform of his business and he allowed Jesus to use it to minister to the needs of the community. And right after that, he tells Peter, row your boat out a little deeper and cast out your nets. And they caught so much fish, he had to call his partner out and fill up both boats to where they almost sank. When you take your business affairs and you partner with Jesus, the increase is exponential. So much that there's not enough room to contain it. We can't separate. We can't separate. We've covered a lot of ground here in 2 days, right? We've still got a little bit more to go yet today. And I know you're all eating this up. So, Lewis, I know you've got a couple of questions.
Yes.
Can you come around? I would welcome you all to please take advantage of this opportunity to be able to ask us some questions, anything at all, and start lining up over here so we can get a few questions addressed. We've got a little bit of time to get through this, but we don't have all day. So we do want to address a couple of those questions and be able to keep it going forward. The main thing I really want you to get here is the importance of understanding your financial affairs. Whether you're doing business or personal business, you must look at it the same.
We'll go with him first. Let's go with him.
Okay.
To start off a business, should you go to take some classes for how to write a business report or anything like that?
Excellent question. He's asking about a business plan. Leroy, tell us about your business plan.
Zero. I've never had one. And I'm not telling you it's right or wrong. I don't know how to write one. All I know is the checks show up and I deposit them in the bank and they clear. You think I'm playing? My business plan is to buy low, sell high. My business plan is to make a profit. My business plan is to not go in debt. So I've never done one. I'm not saying that's, listen, if you write a business plan, here's where I'd recommend not to write a business plan. If you spend 4 years of your life and you get a piece of paper that you spent $60,000 on so you can have a title with your name to go start a business, you're 60 grand in the hole and you wasted 4 years. Okay? And I'm not against that. But what can you do? What can you do right now to generate something? That's what my personal thing. I want to do better. I want to increase. I want to move forward in that place. But never wrote a business plan. My personal story.
A business plan has its place. Now, you do have to have some kind of a plan.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to know where you're going. So if you do your vision mapping like we talked about, you start with your dream, you break it down into goals, you break those down into steps, and you break those down into tasks. That, in essence, is a plan. The formal business plan that today's traditional business world wants to teach you how to write is the type of proposal that you would take to a bank in order to get funding for your business. And if you need to get funding or small business loan, there's absolutely nothing wrong with getting a loan to start a business. And if you're doing that, then you better write some kind of a formal business plan and a proposal in order to put in front of potential funding sources. Right. I work with a lot of venture capitalists. These are people that look for others who have unique ideas to take something new to the marketplace. It could be a product, it could be a building development. These venture capitalists want to see some type of a business plan. Mm-hmm. So if you're going for funding, a business plan would be necessary. Right. Outside of that, a vision map of where you're going to would be absolutely necessary. Right. Okay? So the idea is, ultimately, you need to know where you're going in order to get there. And Habakkuk does say, write the vision, make it clear. Right. So there are tons of downloadable templates that you can use if you want to write some kind of a business plan. But ultimately, start by knowing where you're going with your business. And I know you've shared some ideas and some software and things that you've got that would be phenomenal to take to market. And a simple way to break that down is, I know what I've got for my product. Who's my customer? How do I get it in front of my customer? And then we start implementing a marketing strategy in order to deliver that product in front of your customer. And that can be very simple, and that's so much more simple than writing a formal business plan. Great question, Louis. Thank you. Thank you.
I have 2 questions. Will it be wise to purchase a house that needs repair as an investment if I move into it with my sons?
Let me answer it this way. A home, as we talked about earlier, is a sanctuary. It is an emotional decision. When emotions enter, price becomes irrelevant. Because if you buy emotionally, it's always a losing proposition. A home is something you should buy emotionally because you have to be happy there. The idea that your home is an investment is a fallacy. It really, if it's handled incorrectly, it becomes a big liability. We won't get too much into that. You can get a home at a good value. And if you buy a fixer-upper home, you should get that property at a bit of a discount, so you've got a little bit of equity. That means you've got a value, an asset that has a certain value that has less debt worked on it, which means you've already got a head start on paying it off. And then you customize it to make a home. I would recommend not looking at that home as an investment. But if you get a value purchase on that home, that is a great purchase.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. And the other one is, are there any companies or investors that are willing to provide finances for someone that has a creative idea?
Leroy, you know people in the business who fund things?
Yeah, to me, it's risk versus reward. What are you willing to give up? What percentage are you willing to give up to have it funded? Again, are you waiting for all of the details to get figured out to start? Is my question. Are you trying to get a complete picture before you make a move? And in that scenario, listen, when Abram moved out is when everything started falling into place. When he took the step, piece by piece by piece by piece. So if Abram said, listen, God, I'll go, but I need everything put together first. I need finances. I got 318 people following me. I got to have all that in place before I'll move, but I need this figured out. He would have never moved, and he would have never got the provision.
Okay. Thank you.
He brings up a good point. in these there are several companies out there who will look to fund an idea. Those are the venture capitalist companies that I told you that we've done a lot of work with. It's an entire industry of taking money, putting it to work, and expecting a rate of return. So these are people who have millions of dollars who are looking for a place to go employ that army so that it can make friends and bring friends back home. They like to see a business plan, and they want to see that you've already taken steps to develop it. If you just sit down with an idea, they might say, great idea, but if you've not taken any steps, they're going to take your idea and they're going to go build it.
That's right.
But if you've already done as Abram done, and you've started taking steps and moving in faith, they're going to see you've already taken steps and you're already farther ahead than what they were, and all they need to do is come partner with you in order to get this project developed. So there are lots of companies out there who will do this, big and small.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's a great question. Too often, we will hold back on our dreams because we don't have the money. We talked about yesterday, 98% of people make lack of money their excuse for not pursuing their dreams. God didn't bless Abraham until he started going. Leroy just brought that out. He started moving, and then the blessings came. You start moving towards something, and when you start moving, you open the door for God to rush into the situation. And he will find a way to make it happen. Okay, great question. Hi, Patrice.
Hello. My question kind of piggybacks on that. But it's regarding your personal finances. So would you guys recommend that you get those under control, for example, when you were talking about paying off debt and such, before you move out to a venture? Again, the whole idea that you have to have it all figured out. I mean, when you guys were beginning, was everything all, your finances were under control, you were out of debt, or you just moved based on the desire of your heart?
Sometimes it's birthed out of desire. Sometimes it's birthed out of desperation. And if it's birthed out of desperation, you do what you have to do to get it together. If you're sitting there with a business idea, and Keith, I'm going to ask you to comment a little bit on this too. If you're sitting there with an idea for business or an idea for investment that you think is going to go make you go rich, and you want to leave your current job in order to do it, you'd better have your personal finances in order. You don't want to give up one income stream in hope for another. But if you start working on that other on a part-time basis and growing it, eventually it will grow big enough to swallow the primary stream and become the primary itself. Okay? Sometimes crisis forces change. And you might need to go start a business because you can't get anybody else to pay you what you need to survive. So the real answer to your question would be, it depends. And you need to cry out to God for clear direction there and see what he wants you to do. He may be calling you to start something. He may be requiring that you get your house in order first. And you must have your house in order to really match out. I will say this, if your personal finances are a wreck, your business finances will be even worse. And so many people will go into business, they'll buy some kind of an income stream, make an investment in a stock, buy a bond, something that pays a big dividend, flip a house. They'll do something that earns them a lot of money, and then rather than reinvesting those profits because they're not properly managing the resources of their business, they strip it right out, put it in their personal account, which is a mess, and then they end up being an even worse mess. Now they got business debt and personal debt. So really you do want to get your personal finances in order. Keith?
Yeah, I would definitely say, especially if you are someone that has people dependent upon your income, you definitely, want to consider that risk more so than, say, for instance, if you're single and you have no one dependent upon you and your income, then you can take a little more of a risk there.
And if I can just be transparent, my stuff was a wreck. I'm an absolute wreck, a mess. You would look at my life and be like, Leroy, don't do anything. Get your house in order. I didn't have an option. Like you said, desperation. I didn't have an option. So you get to, what's great is know where you're at, know where you want to go. You get to make that choice. That's the power of where you stand right now. I'm at where I'm at. I'll tell you this, my business is the one that cleaned everything up. So if it would have taken me, I would have been sitting here right now going, I'm trying to get my house in order, right? And right now I'm sitting in a place of saying, my business cleaned up the mess, right? So growth solves everything.
when managed properly.
Thank you.
You have another question?
So what I hope you guys were looking to do was spark some things that you may have put on the shelf, and that's what happened today for me. And one of the things that I put on the shelf was a personal service business. And so how formal, from like a person to person, a service, something that you do well, something you do really well, and a service that you can provide someone. So, in terms of a business and a service that can provide you income to put in your silo to invest in some of these other opportunities, how formal would you get with a service, something that you can provide as a service business? Does that make sense?
Talking about how formal a business is, there's no rule to how formal it is or is not, am I right? I mean, Leroy started his business in the back of a red Kia.
Why does it keep saying that? I wish it would go away. Yes, sure did.
Nothing formal about that. Nothing at all. So I started selling real estate 20 some odd years ago out of an old Ford pickup truck. That was the day when the realtor still put somebody into the car and drove them around, and I'd be like having a client going, "You're driving that? I'll follow you." That was unheard of in those days. So there's nothing formal about that. You just do what you have to do. Here's the important thing. Any service that you're going to offer must service your customer. It must meet the needs of the community. That is the primary source, primary goal of any and every business. If you don't service people, you won't make people happy, and people won't appreciate you with their money if you don't make them happy. The second part of that is you must believe that you're worth it. And this is a big problem we have. If we start a business out of need, then we're suffering from a point of lack. If we're in lack, we start to get this we are the world syndrome and think everybody else is in lack. So now we've got a service, and maybe our service has a fair market value of $1,000, but now I have to sit down and I have to ask somebody to give me that $1,000. But because I don't have that $1,000, I'm now afraid to ask somebody for that $1,000, so I discount it and I sell it for $100, and then I wonder why my business isn't making any money. You've got to decide what you're worth. You've got to learn to see yourself in the identity that Christ put on you. And when you grab a hold of that identity and you see yourself as a child of the King who's clothed in the robes of righteousness that Jesus put upon you, you start to understand that you have value. And that's a value you bring to your business and to your marketplace, and you can't be afraid to charge a reasonable value for that service. Okay?
And Patrice, what are industry standards? I mean, to me, that's what sets your price point. What are people in the industry paying for that service? And I want to say this, you have to do it with where you're at, but try, in your mind, picture it as an excellent service. Don't halfway. I see that so much.
That's right.
It runs rampant. People do stuff halfway. That's why I get so much business thrown my way, because people do it halfway. It doesn't work. The stuff breaks. And you're providing a half service, charging a full amount, and you'll never get repeat business. The customers I've had for 10 years, 5 years. They call me every single time because they know they're going to get an excellent service.
That's a great point.
And it didn't have an excellent look. And, to bring up the red Kia, listen, it didn't look good when I drove up, but you know what? It looked good when I left because all their stuff worked, all their stuff was installed right. So to me, I had to do what I had to do, but I always wanted to have professional service.
And that's a key. Colossians says that in anything that you put your hand to do, you do it as you're doing it unto the Lord.
And I just want to
in anything.
I just wanted to comment because I have tried businesses before, and someone moderately successful. I'm the guy that's still a business of one. I still work for a company, and but you have to see yourself as what you have is value. Because if you don't, if you're just going out, and I would say this to anyone, really ask yourself, why do I want to start a business? Is it really because I just want to be wealthy, or do I really have a passion for what I'm doing? Because some of the past businesses that I've been in, it was really just to make money, and I didn't do it very well. And so that's why I'm not successful in it. But when you have a passion and you wake up in the morning and you say, I would do this even if I didn't get paid for it, then that's a passion. and you can turn that into something that earns wealth for you.
It's writing, ghost writing, and I did it for free. And I had worked with people in publications, and they got published and got the credit, but yeah, writing.
Awesome. Awesome.
Patrice, my wife's back there going, we need to talk to you.
There it is. Patrice just expanded. Oh, look, Patrice just expanded times 2. Oh, wait, there's 3. She just got 3 customers sitting in our seminars.
Now, this is phenomenal. You see how quick it is? When you start to speak something, you see how quickly God can rush in. Now,
Hey, Troy, look, now, this is a fact. Whenever I'm moving into an area, I start talking about it. I start verbalizing it. I verbalize it to God, I verbalize it for myself, and I start telling other people about it. And you know what happens? That person has a need that fits the direction I'm going, and there's a door that's opened up.
that's exactly right. You open your mouth. Jesus said, out of the mouth, the heart speaks. Matthew chapter 12. You've got to understand, we are created in the image of God. If you want to know that image, read Genesis chapter 1. God created the earth. In the beginning, it was God. And God said, and it was so. And it says over and over again, God said, and it was so. God said, and it was so. God said, and it was so. Does anybody in here ever question that if God said something, it will or come to pass or not? There's no need to question, because God said, and it was so. And then God created us in His image, in His likeness. Not that we look like Him, but we're in His likeness. We have His nature. And He gave us the same power of creation. And Jesus recognized that same power of creation in Matthew chapter 12 when He said, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. And He continues in saying that a good man, in referring to his speaking, brings forth good things. But an evil man, out of the abundance of evil in his heart, as he speaks, he brings forth evil things. If you're one of those people that runs around going, it'll never work, guess what?
It'll never work.
You're right. Leroy pointed this out yesterday. Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. And whatever you speak, you bring forth. Now, I'm going to use Patrice as an example here. She threw out a little bit timidly, I do ghostwriting, and I've done it for free. She got stopped halfway back up the aisle.
Right.
She just got pulled out into the hallway to talk to somebody else right now. Out of the mouth, she spoke.
Right.
And something starts to develop. How many of you have had an idea, a thought, a concept, a dream, a vision, and you've just kept it to yourself because you don't want to say anything to anybody in case it goes wrong? So what if it goes wrong? You want to know the difference between a successful person and an unsuccessful person? A successful person has actually failed more times than an unsuccessful. They just kept going. Proverbs says a righteous man falls down 7, but how many times does he get up? He keeps getting right back up.
Right.
But an unsuccessful person, they try, they fail, and they stop and said, I knew it wouldn't work.
And they blame somebody else.
That's right. It's a great question.
Hi. For the past 2 days, you talk about not getting rich quick, not getting wealth quick. But I'm a quick person. I like things quick. And when you have delayed your dreams for years and you're getting older, you don't have a lot of time. And based on, I've done stocks, I've done the day trading, I've done all that and win some and lost some. And I'm looking at real estate, and I think I've never heard of the tax and liens. My boss mentioned it to me last week, and it's so ironic that I stepped in and saw the book on the desk. So to me, God is sending me in that direction. And it seemed like it would be a safe and quick way to get some of that passive income coming in. How popular is it? Where do you start? Does it sell by brokerage firms, banks? Where do you get it? How do you invest in it?
Great question. Not one I can answer in a matter of a couple of minutes. I can give you a couple of directions. There are 5,200 counties in this nation, roughly thereabouts. Half of them do tax liens, and every one of them has their own set of rules. But the county itself is the one who's going to sell the lien or the deed. So you can contact the county tax collector, and they'll start to give you the rules right there. There are so many different ways that they sell it. There's some auction, some bid up, some bid down. Florida, for example, is a bid down state when it goes to auction, and you can buy online. you start bidding down. So the interest rate will start at 18%, and I've seen people bid it all the way down to 0.25%. You've got to understand the strategy if you're doing that. The reason they're bidding it to 0.25% is because they're betting that it's a homestead exempt property and somebody just had a little mental faux pas, forgot to pay their taxes, and they're going to pay it back within the next 90 days, and if they do, it's an automatic 5% penalty, so that's a quick 5% return in 90 days, which is great.
Okay.
But if they gambled wrong, they're stuck in a lien position earning 0.25 percentage point in interest every year.
Okay.
So you do need to understand the rules. The book would really help you.
Okay.
But you can get a lot of information by going straight to the county tax collector too. Okay. It sounds to me like somebody's introducing an opportunity to you. Can you build wealth with it? Yes. Are you going to get rich quick? No. There is
Okay.
not a get rich quick scheme on the planet. Does that mean that God would not open up to you an idea that would dump hundreds of thousands of dollars into your pocket this year? I've seen it happen.
Okay.
I've experienced some turns to go from being way down here to way up here in about 30 days. When you understand the market cycles and you see where God's directing you and you learn to react. Leroy talked yesterday about how fast you change. How fast do you change when the cloud's moving? Boom. We got to be ready to go, there it is, let's go.
Right.
And we've made so many shifts. When we opened up our home remodel company, I knew what a house should look like when it's done. You know the real fun part? Technology today will teach you anything. I showed up on a job one day with a bunch of homeless people in there working, and there was a particular task that needed to be done, and I'm like, here, do it. Well, how do we do it? Let me go get a tool out of my truck. I went in my truck, opened up my iPad, went on YouTube, watched a little 10-minute video on how to do it, came in there with the tools and taught them how to do it.
Okay. All righty, thank you.
It can happen real quick, Joyce.
All right.
It can happen real quick. Good question.
All right. How you guys doing?
Awesome. How are you?
Wonderful.
Good.
I have two major industries that I've wanted to work in. Real estate is one of them. I'm in the process of finishing my online school, and I got connected with Ronnie, and I'm going to suck as much information out of him as possible so I can multiply what he's doing.
Give him
That's
mine,
great.
Ronnie.
Ronnie's excited. You know, Ronnie's excited about that. A guy that wants to suck all the information out of it. How exciting.
So I'm going to do that. My other thing is I feel like when I really get into the Word, a lot of times I feel like the Lord talks to me about inventions. So I have an invention in my mind, and I want to know how to take that to the next step. Sometimes I've talked to people, and usually they give me the fear side of everything. You know, if you tell people too many things, they'll just steal your invention and then run out and create it themselves and make all the money, and you lose everything.
And those are all successful inventors that are giving you that advice, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Why do we take advice on
Yeah.
how to build wealth from broke people?
Yeah, exactly. So that's my next thought is, besides real estate, when inventions, what's the next step once I have an idea and I've written it all down, dates and all, to go from there?
That's not one that's not my forte.
I've actually got a friend that we just helped go through this process. And it's taken him a couple years to take his idea from prototype to where he's actually getting a manufacturer and looking at distribution. And it was a very simple idea. And it was just a little tool that goes on an end of a stick that does something in his industry. That's as much as I'm allowed to really say. He developed a prototype, actually casting it in his garage with a sand mold, and then was able to demonstrate that at a couple of projects that he was working on. He validated, and this is important with any invention, you've got to validate that there is a need. You do have to show it to people. I know people that have inventions that are going through this 7-year-long patent process, trying to get a patent on it before they ever go to market.
Right.
I remember my dad coming home once when I was a little boy and telling me he was all excited about this idea he had to market a novelty thing. Back then, the term elbow grease was very important, so he wanted to take elbow grease and put it on the market and be successful, just like the guy who sold the pet rock. And he's talking about it, and he starts working up his marketing plan, and a year later, he shows me an ad of somebody selling elbow grease. It wasn't him. Because he sat on the shelf, he spent too much time planning. You need to develop a prototype that you can get ready and prove that it actually works. And then once you've got a prototype, now it's like you're stepping out in faith. God, you gave me this idea. You know, all inspiration comes from God. Amen. Genesis 2:7 says that when he formed man, he breathed the breath of life into him. That word breath, the word neshama, is the Spirit of God. Job said that if he ever took the neshama out of us, we would lose all inspiration. That's the same inspiration that's in every single one of us. God breathed that inspired idea into you. Your responsibility is to start moving forth in the conviction level of faith, understanding that God gave you this idea and He's going to open opportunities for you to distribute it. So you've got to start working on developing a prototype, developing something that you can demonstrate. One of the most important things, my dad taught me 3 things in life before he died. He said, if you watch the nickels and dimes, the dollars will take care of themselves. He said, anything that you're willing to sell, you must be willing to demonstrate. That's what you've got to do with your invention. And the final thing he told me is the only thing permanent in life is change. So you've got to be ready to shift with the market. You've got to be ready to demonstrate whatever it is you sell. So get a prototype, get some kind of a working model or some kind of a thesis written up so that your invention has proof that it actually works. And God will open the doors for you to bring it to market.
Can I shift to the first question? Because you did the first question, he handled the second one. I want to address what you just physically said about Ronnie. Because I am a Ronnie, right? And I'm glad to pour into people. I'm glad to get next to a guy. I'm glad to help a guy out. As soon as somebody comes into my life, though, and wants to exploit that, and I'm not saying that's where you're coming from, but what you said was, I'm going to suck everything out of him. Right, I'm going to suck as much information out of him. Now, here's the deal. If you do that, remember everything is a transaction. You're withdrawing. So if you don't make a deposit, the relationship will sever. Right? So now come to the table. Ronnie, you're going to back this up. You'll tell me if I'm right or wrong when you come up here. But if you come to the table and, hey, Ronnie, let's hook up, man. I want to buy you coffee. Hey, Ronnie, let's hook up, man. Let's chuck it. Let's just throw some vision out there. If there's a tennis match where, bam, you're hitting it that way, he's hitting it that way, you're hitting it that way, then man, we can track together. Ronnie, true or false? Do you want to help people get to where you're at in life?
Yes.
Absolutely. No question asked.
No question.
He wants to help people get to where he's at. But as soon as somebody's drawing life out of me, you're cut, you're done next. We want to run together? Oh, let's run together. We want to track together? We'll track together. So just come to that relationship right now, knowing I'm going to add value to that guy. I'm going to make him some money. You make him some money, he'll want to hang out with you more, right? Yes. You're going to build that relationship. So that's my 2-second snippet for that. Build that, because that's the alliance you want. Right? You don't want the other alliances you got that tell you you're going to go broke and tell you not to steal your ID. Cut those relationships and build one with him. Amen?
Amen. Thank you.
It's good.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Amen.
My question, two questions. One is, if we could speak to corporate structure. What are the advantages and disadvantages between SRC Corp and an LLC?
Good question. It looks at tax advantages. Corporate structure is something that's absolutely necessary if you're setting up a business. Most people start in business as a sole proprietor. It's the easiest thing to do. It is easy to set up. You have little paperwork. You just open up and start doing business in your name. As a sole proprietor, you lose a lot of tax advantages. One of the biggest right now, let's look at just medical expenses to start with. Under current tax law, the first $10,000 that you're paying in medical expenses is exempt from exemption. You're not anything over $10,000 you can start to claim. But you can't claim that first $10,000. With the new law of the land that we know as Obamacare, where you're actually mandated to buy some kind of insurance or you're going to pay a tax penalty at the end of the year, then you need to be able to maximize. If you're going to go out and buy your own health policy, you need to be able to maximize that. So you need to set up a corporate structure. An LLC is a very simple, easy to set up corporate structure. You can do one-member or multi-member LLCs. Almost every state in the union recognizes an LLC, so it's an easy thing to set up. LLCs, in my opinion, and I'm not a tax advisor, but I'm happy to refer with you with a great accountant who I've worked with for about 13 years if you're interested. And he does stuff for clients all around the country. But a good tax advisor, an LLC is great for passive income, not active income. Active income is anything that you have to get up and go do in order to receive income. Passive income is something that pays you whether you get out of bed that day or not. Rental property is great passive income. You could be a silent partner in a business that pays dividends to you. That's passive income. There's several different vehicles of passive income. Those are wonderful things to put into an LLC. You don't put active income in an LLC because your LLC is 100% of your profits in an LLC is subject to self-employment tax. That's the FICA tax. That adds up a little bit more than 15% of your gross income. So if your LLC earns $100,000, right off the top, you're taking 15 grand and you're giving it to Uncle Sam even before you pay income tax. That's the disadvantage of doing active business in an LLC. If you put it in an S Corp, you could earn that same $100,000, put yourself on a salary of say $24,000, and you're going to pay your FICA tax, your 15% on that $24,000. The other $76,000 you can pass through to yourself as a dividend. You're still going to pay income tax, but you don't have to pay the self-employment tax on there. So there's a big advantage to an S Corp if it's managed properly. There's a lot of rules on how you do that, but
I've heard that LLCs can elect to be taxed as an S corp in Florida. Is that
that is
true?
correct. Yes, LLCs in some states can be taxed as an S Corp. And so you still have the advantage of the pass-through with the tax savings and benefits of an S Corp. And maybe, depending on your type of business, that would be a decent structure because LLCs will offer you certain protections. I look at it all as not having the right corporate structure for asset protection, but having it right for taxes. I've been in business now for more than 25 years. I've had a couple of close calls with some things that we've always been able to settle, but I've never had to stand in front of a judge and be sued, but I still have to answer to Uncle Sam and the IRS every single year. So I look at a corporate structure as a proper tax plan, and you want to structure it to where you're going to maximize your tax deductions. A C Corp is a completely separate entity. The first $50,000 is looked at differently. After that, the C Corp is taxed as an entity, and then you're taxed separate from that. So a C Corp, in my opinion, is great when you start getting big enough to do a strategy called income splitting, where you can actually hire your C Corporation to manage your other subsidiary corporations and start to pay management fees upline to your C Corp and start to split out that income and spread your tax base out so you could minimize it that way.
Thank you. My other question is perhaps not so much a question, but I'd like each of you gentlemen to share your perspective on this. And I preface it this way. I've found in my personal life that when my wallet is fat, I'm a little lean on pressing into the presence of the Father, and vice versa. When I'm a little more broke and strapped, I tend to run to God quickly. Cortez said that we Spaniards suffer from a disease of the heart that only gold can cure. John Wesley, who founded Methodism, said, whenever I get money, I quickly give it away, lest it find a way into my heart. Wow. So for all the scriptures, and I believe we're all here because we believe God wants us to be abundant, live in abundance. There's an equal number of scriptures that caution us about money. I'd like your perspective, please, gentlemen, on the heart condition and connection between business and money and how we can guard ourselves from that disease of the heart that is so insidious relative to wealth and money, earthly riches.
Great question. Let's let Keith start.
I think there's a couple of things that you have to look at. One is, where was your heart before you got the money? Number two is, as you are coming into wealth, you want to surround yourself with people who will keep you solid, keep you on the floor, so your head doesn't blow up and you start thinking that you're more than what you are. You know, if you're married, that's a good thing because a wife will usually do that for you. I've been married 35 years, so I can tell you, whenever my head starts blowing up, she quickly sticks a pin in it and brings me back down to earth. But yes, you are true. And I think if your heart is open, you always have to constantly check your heart. You have to always constantly search your heart. So, and just keep your heart pure before God. That's the thing. And that's one of the challenges when you start to come into wealth, is keeping your heart pure before God, you know. I mean, Solomon started out real well, you know, because he had a pure heart for the Lord. He says, you know, give me wisdom that I may lead your people. And then on down the line, he has 700 wives and concubines. I don't know how he did that. But I mean, that's just crazy, right? Even thinking about that. And he kind of lost his way, you know. And so it is a struggle. It is something that you have to be mindful of. But like I said, if you have an accountability structure around you of people that can keep you grounded, that's a good thing.
I mean, for my personal life, I live out of a place of thankfulness and gratitude. I mean, every day I thank God that, you know, he's done what he's done. And I think when you have that perspective, you know, he wants to give his kids the kingdom. You know what I mean? And as long as my relationship with him is right, I think that just increases more and more and doubles and triples. And, you know, we're living in a place now. I mean, we started up a organization, Identity Defined, not because it's going to make us more money, but to get this message out. Man, what can I do to help the kingdom out? What can I help? Man, if you're in the kingdom and I'm in the, that means you're my brother and you're my sister. What can I do to pour into your life? What can I do to listen, we're good. I'm good. My bills are paid. Debt's paid off. So as soon as I start trusting in money, it all falls apart. Then you're lost your way. You know, I live out of place. I get up every day and I thank God that I'm in my 30s and God has opened up enough stuff that I do what I want. I'm not enslaved to any man. Leroy and Rochelle does what we feel God is calling us to do every day of our life. So, great question.
It is a phenomenal question. I can sum it up this way. Whose money is it? Right. If your best friend brought you something that they treasured and they handed it to you to care for, I don't care how special you thought that thing was and how much you wanted to play with it. Would you care for it so when they came back for it, you could still hand it to them and show them that you cared for it out of love and respect for them? When God puts wealth into your hands, you've got to understand it's not yours. It's His. Haggai says, all the silver and all the gold belongs to the Lord. And when you recognize that He put it in there, and here's that relationship I was talking about this morning when I was alluding to time and money. If you're spending that time with Him, if you're investing your money in Him, and you're honoring Him with all the resources that He's put in your hand, now He has a way to bless you and put in more because you're recognizing, Father, you put this in my hand. What would you like me to do with this resource that you've blessed me with? How would you like me to distribute it? We live in a society of consumers, and God called us not to be consumers, but to be distributors. If we honor Him and recognize that He entrusted to us, then stewardship says we're going to go. But as soon as we forget to honor Him and we forget that it's His, and it now becomes mine, we've just stepped out of His economy and stepped into the world's economy, and we start living life by possession instead of access. Great question.
Yeah.
Great question.
Great responses.
Well, he took my question I was going to have you guys, but I also want to piggyback on what I do to make sure you guys understand. I'm offering you a resource. If you want to do real estate, I will be your resource. I will find all the money you want to get a property. It won't cost you anything out of your pocket, just your time. And only thing's going to happen, only 10 people in here, if you take on this opportunity, will do it. I'm not asking for anything out of your pocket, just your time. I will show you how to make money. Like he said, it won't happen overnight, but I will give you the tools. I will teach you how to fish, but I will not fish for you. This is really easy. You just got to step out in faith. If you don't have faith, don't come talk to me. Because I will tell you, you're scared. Fear will paralyze you from doing anything that you want to do. Yeah. If you have fear, it will not work with me because I can smell it a mile away. And I won't waste any time with it. Right.
Let me tell you, this man is the real deal.
Right.
5 years ago, in a process of teaching my daughter a little something about money, she helped me when we found a house, we bought it, we trashed it out, and then we sold it to a group of investors. And Ronnie happened to be among that group of investors.
Is that right?
Yes, taught my daughter how to. She got to earn a little percentage on the house flip, and she was able to go out and enjoy a little bit of the fruit of that too. That was in a down market in 2010 when people were saying the real estate market is bad. And here's a man who's the real deal who's out there doing it. And what he just did was he did the same thing Jesus did, and he says, I've got a mina who wants to go multiply it. And he's not going to waste any time with people who take the mina and don't bring it back. And that mina might even be a small task. When you've got somebody who's willing to mentor you in any aspect, be it business, be it ministry, be it better performance on your job, be it a skill, be it a song coach, an instrument, a musical teacher, anybody who wants to mentor you, when they give you a task and you fail to do that task, how much is that person really going to continue to sow into you? So a mentorship relationship is two-way.
Right.
One more question. Do you have something you want to comment on that?
No, just I value that so much. Ronnie, I grew up, I know business now because of mentors and coaches, and I'm so thankful because it's these guys that paved the way before us that's enabled me just to follow. Listen, I can double anything. I can duplicate anything. If you've done it, I know I can do it because God's no respecter of persons. And so we sit here today, now we're the mentors maybe. Maybe we're in places to mentor and to coach, and that's why we're speaking to you guys today. But realize, man, when you get a real relationship that is that coach-mentor, man, you cherish that thing. That thing is gold. That thing will pay you over and over and over again. So I value that. Appreciate you.
Hi, quick question. We've had a 501c3 for almost 10 years, but we've also had under it, a business license corporation. Now, recently, we've just felt directed to start a business side to help raise funds for the ministry and other ministries. I called on it and asked if we needed to do something different, and they said that fell under fundraising. But I'm still just hesitant. Should we do something else with that, or is it all under the nonprofit, operate that way?
I would not run it all under the nonprofit. This is a great question. It's a great question. And this comes, and please don't take this wrong, Robin, this comes from just not knowing how to set it up. And then you call people who help you set it up, and they don't know either. So she calls, she asks a great question, and the advice she gets is, oh, your business falls under the operation of fundraising for your nonprofit. So that person obviously didn't understand the profit mode of business.
And I called the licensing.
And you called the
Office.
business licensing office,
Yeah.
which is, business license is nothing more than collecting a tax. Because now they can issue you a fee to have a little piece of paper to hang on your wall, and if you don't have it, they can issue a bigger fee they call a fine. And then they've got to recollect your fee every year to renew that certificate. It's just another form of tax. Kind of makes the world go round. It's one of those necessary things that we just do. So those people who are in the job of collecting taxes aren't going to be the ones who understand business. To answer your question, if you've got a for-profit business, then you set up a for-profit entity. That for-profit entity can make donations or contributions to your nonprofit entity. Those contributions become charitable contributions that your profit entity has made and are therefore tax deductible, as long as you properly document them. Your nonprofit entity benefits from those charitable contributions and now has funds to go do the work that it's called to do. They should not be mixed. They have two different purposes. The two different purposes can operate together, and they are necessary to support each other. They need to come together in a partnership, but they're still two different purposes. Okay?
Glad I asked.
Great question.
Thank you.
Great question. Leroy, you've just set up something like that as well.
We did. It was so funny, lack of understanding. So a lot of us, I came to Troy and I was like, I wanted to set up this ministry. This ministry was born this year, and I said, Rochelle's like, it's a non-for-profit. And I said, I'm not doing anything not-for-profit. If I do anything, it's gonna be for-profit. And my heart attitude was, anything I do prospers, right? But the lack of knowledge, he was laughing about it. He's like, okay, Leroy, but my lack of knowledge was there. That's why I have great people around me that are further in life than I am to come into my life and say, Leroy, tax-wise, you want it set up as your non-for-profit can turn a profit, but you want that to take advantage of the tax laws and other things that we're not talking about. So thank God that I've got people in life that are further along the road than I am. Because I'll be putting my foot, I don't want to do nothing not for profit. So anyways, that's
good.
Get good coaches and mentors.
Okay, Judy does have a question that was texted in. She wants to go. Come on up here on the blue X, please, Judy.
Okay, this says, where do we begin when we get home tonight? On our knees or jumping off a cliff? And if you work for a government-funded company that there is no way to move up or make the company money, then what do we do? And this is such as a teacher or an EMT.
First of all, I would advise not jumping off the cliff. So if we start there, I don't care if it's a government-funded company. I don't care if it's funded off donations. I don't care if it's a multi-billion-dollar-a-year corporation. It doesn't matter. As soon as you say, there is no place for me to go, you've just limit God. And you can't limit God. God could be using that because every company interacts with other people, other companies. Right. There's always other transitions. It might be a government-funded contract, and maybe there's the appearance that there's no place to move up. I once worked for a company that had a government-funded contract. It had a 5-year contract. At the end of that 5 years, was that contract renewed? No. Did the government still want the service? Yes. Who was the next person to start bidding on that service? It happened to be one of the employees that worked above me inside that first company. Is God big enough to equip you to be the one who bids on that next contract when it comes up and shifts you from being a person who's there working to the one who owns and operates? If you get in there and you serve whatever organization as if you're serving the master himself, and you learn everything you can about it, then God can bless that opportunity and open it up for you to become an owner of a business or to be recognized by a competitor who wants to bring you in to be on part of their team. And when you have value to offer, you no longer have to go to an employer in an interview and say, please give me a job. You can walk into an employer and say, well, if I come work here, what are you going to do for me? It's all about having that value. And you're going to have that value by being the best servant that you possibly can be and learning everything that you can to be the best expert that you can be in your field. That's that sharpening the axe. Ecclesiastes 10 says that if the axe is dull, you have to work that much harder. But if it's sharp, I don't need to finish that one, do I? So you become the best that you can be, and you trust God to be able to open up opportunities. This is a great question. Do you want to say anything, Keith?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on what Troy said, because I've experienced this in my own life. As I alluded to the time when I was facing layoff, well, the end of that story was that another company came after me and actually offered me a higher position. And instead of taking that higher position, I looked at the whole picture and I came back to my company and says, you have an opportunity to keep me. And what they did was they changed my title, freed up my time, but left my salary in place as a manager. So actually last year, I made more than my manager made. Because my bonuses are based on my work habits, not the whole team's work habits.
So wait a minute. Let me just make sure I understand this, Keith. You were about to be laid off. And instead of being laid off, you got offered a job for a higher pay, which you decided to stay with your company. They left you a salary, gave you a title, so you didn't really get a promotion, you didn't really get moved up, but you still got blessed with increase in a place where there wasn't even a job to begin with because you were about to be laid off.
Correct. And just a couple of weeks ago, because of me applying what Troy was saying, to be the best that I could be at what I'd done, one of our regional managers was riding with me, inspecting the work, and she leans over at the end of it and said, you should be in management. So it's adding value. My company has come to me several times and asked me to move back into management. But I says, no, I'd rather do what I'm doing because I have outside desires outside of the company. They don't know that, but I know that. And God is moving me into a different realm and into a different place. So, yes, be the best that you can be, add value to your company, and the opportunities, God will open up opportunities. I can attest to that.
And I've done the same thing. I've been in a place that the last job that I was at, I brought him as an employee, I brought him $700,000 in contracts in a year. I brought the contract, we did the work, I did everything. And on my way out, instead of slacking off, instead of laying low, I kept the pedal down, I kept doing good, I kept making him money. And I started verbalizing, I'm on my way out. God's opening something else up. I know God's moving on. That is where my heart was right, and that's when I got the meeting to step into a partnership where we've done large churches. That's the partnership that is the Lockheed Martin, the Disney, and the Orlando Magic. Came out of me doing the right thing all the way up to the end, where I'm trying to make this guy money. I don't like anything about him, what he stands for, what he believes in, and I kept making him money day in, day out, day in, day out. And God saw the heart and brought the promotion. And it wasn't in that vein. So God opened, because I couldn't move up in that vein and I didn't want to be around that, God opened it up somewhere else.
So I can sum it up with, where do you go from here? You fall on your knees. You start crying out to God. You probably have a little bit of repentance for some of the things that you need to turn from, because you've been guilty of the poverty mindset, because you recognize you've been under the influence of that foul thing we call mammon, because you realize that your lack of knowledge has affected your personal finance. It's held you back from going after your dreams and building the business or the investments or the increase that you've wanted to do, that you've allowed fear to reign in control. And then you begin to just worship. You don't fall into condemnation, because there is no condemnation. But there is God, who has just handed you all of this weekend and says, now it's for you to be free. The veil has been peeled away. And now you see His plan, His purpose, and His desire to increase you. And you receive. You lift your hands and you worship Him and you receive. And you begin to cry out to Him and look for a plan. God, you're putting seed into my hand. I'm sorry that I've eaten the seed. I'm not going to eat the seed anymore, Lord. I'm going to covenant with you and always give you. Jacob made a covenant with God in Genesis, I think it's 28. And he entered that covenant. He leaves his home, heading to go to work for his uncle Laban, who's crooked, and does everything he can to try to steal from him. No room for promotion, no nothing. And on the way, he lays down, puts his head on a rock. How comfortable does that sound? Boy, if you rolled over a little bit hard in the night and wake up and you got a big old knot in the back of your skull, just from sleeping. It's kind of like growing old. You know, when you were a kid, when I was a kid, if I went out and had a really good time, I'd get up the next day and, oh, I hurt. Yeah, man, I must have had fun last night. Now I wake up and I hurt. Yeah, I slept wrong. There's a guy who could have slept wrong and cracked his head on a rock, right? But he has this encounter with God. And he wakes up and he says, God, if you are going to be my God, then I will always serve you, and I promise I will always give 1/10 of whatever you give me back to you. Right. And he entered that covenant. And then he went and worked for his uncle for 20 years in a hostile environment, in a place where the employer only wanted to get wealthy, and Laban served him. Right. And there's the whole spotted sheep and the whole streaked sheep thing, and if you're not familiar with the story, go read it. Because it's a powerful, powerful story. And Jacob leaves there with a lot of wealth. He's got wives, he's got kids, and he's got this huge flock and all this wealth. And when he left, the void he left in his former employer's business was big enough that he wanted to come out and chase after him. Yeah. God can bless you in whatever environment as long as you begin to give Him the credit.
Right.
That's where you go from here. God, thank you that you've given me this truth. Now help me to empower it. Good stuff. We've got a network here, SoCo, Solomon Company, which is a marketplace ministry team that helped put this together. SoCo meets Saturday mornings here in Orlando, first Saturday of every month. We can get you some information on that. What a great place to come to start talking with other marketplace-minded Christians who want to enjoy God's increase and God's plan for ministry through economic activity and get the support that you need to walk this out. Great resources that are available to you. Phenomenal. Okay. This has been good. I want to thank you all for all your questions. But give yourselves a hand, please. It's been really good.